Right. Hier is daar enigiemand wat kyk. Almal snel op. Ons weet dit.
Daar's hy.
Ja. Dankie, daar's een. Kom ons begin.
Dis seker Sean.
Dis seker
Ek
so.
wonder of Sean weet ons is hierso.
Of vir Cindy of Pamela.
Ja, nou, hulle almal is daarso.
Hulle is almal daar.
Miskien is ons ding net daar. Hey Chris.
Hier's wat jy.
Why don't eggs tell jokes?
What and what?
Why don't eggs tell jokes?
I don't know.
They'd crack each other up.
Oh. Hey, Whitey.
Yeah.
I have a clean conscience. I haven't used it once until now.
Why couldn't the bicycle stand up by itself?
I don't know.
It was too tired.
Oh. Hey, Whitey.
Yeah.
Do I lose when the police officer says papers and I say scissors?
Right, gaan ons live gaan voordat die mense nie weet ons is nie hier nie.
Ja, kom ons gaan live hè. Kom. Two guys with the greatest guests, entertainment at its best. Grab your coffee, grab your crisp. It's the YT and Chris Show, SA Bros. Yeah.
Yes. Goeienaand en welkom almal hier by nog 'n episode van SA Bros. Goeienaand Chris, wat sê jy?
Lekker jy bro, maar jy weet nie wat, jy cheer my op hè.
Voordat ons daarmee aangaan, ek sien jy gaan so 'n keer daar op die skerm. Die volume is, daai volume is nog al die jare dieselfde. Ek dink jou volume is dalk bietjie te hard aan jou kant hier rond.
Weet jy wat, ek hardloop amper teen helfte die volume wat ek altyd hardloop. So vir my is so hard te wees.
Ek het nou net agtergekom, daai is ons ou intro. So hy was tog altyd op die ding gewees. Ek het niks aan hom gedoen.
Okay,
Anyways, guys, good evening. Welcome to a very special, very informative show.
Yes.
I hope you guys are ready. I hope you guys got questions and everything, because tonight is not about jokes and so on. We're going to actually look into the more seriousness this lockdown has had the effect on you. Chris and myself have done our utmost to make it comical and entertaining to keep you guys sane. But I've had a lot of people that's asked me, please, can we get a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist on? Dr. Nikki Rains recommended Dr. Christopher Stones. Sorry, apologies. Yeah. So, guys, we're going to chat to the doctor now. We're going to bring him in. We don't want to waste too much time. Chris, I think you would agree with me. So let's bring in Dr. Stones. We're going to chat to him. And, guys, please send us your messages. If you want to stay anonymous, if you've got Chris or myself's number, please WhatsApp us. We won't put your name to it. But let's get the help there. We've got the doctor in the house. Yeah. Let's bring him to the show.
Absolutely.
Good evening, Dr. Stones. How are you doing?
Hello. Good evening, Whitey and Chris. I'm doing very well, but pretty cold at the moment.
Yeah,
the cold. I've always wanted to say this. What's up, Doc? Yeah. Well, the cold is definitely setting in quickly now. I even on the satellite views and stuff, you can check. It's just everything's going haywire. The whole South Africa's freezing.
Yeah.
You know, Chris, a moment ago you said you wish you could say, "What's up, Doc?" Well, had I been brought onto the show less than 10 minutes ago, there was an Eskom outage. So I thought, okay, we've got Wi-Fi here, but I have no idea how you guys are going to see me. Anyway, it's come back now. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
We had the possibility last night with Ray Moord on the show where it went dark a few times, and he said that the power might trip, and every time it went dark by him, we're like, oh no, we lost him. But meanwhile, it was an incoming phone call.
Yeah. And you know what? I think now, especially with this cold coming in, and everybody's at home, I think if you're home alone now is gonna like really test your mental strength.
Okay, a lot of us, I know there's a lot of ex-army guys and so on out there that have learned certain skills on how to train, well, pretty much your mind, how to keep a focused mind in really bad situations. But I also know that there's a lot of people who've never had any training or pretty much don't have an idea how to keep your mind in its own world when everything else is failing, especially here in South Africa.
So you'd like me to answer that?
Yes, please. Tell me, what can guys actually do to keep their mental just stability and health?
Their mental health,
their mental health on a roll at this time.
Yes. You know, Chris, one of the most important aspects is to keep oneself busy, but busy, in a meaningful way. And that can be difficult to do day after day after day, particularly if during the lockdown, one was told, go home and we'll call you when we need you again. So I'd say point one is endeavor to do one's best to constantly keep active. And that activity, perhaps you could break into small chunks. So it might be part of activity is if one can risk exposure to the virus, maybe going shopping, to a particular place. It may be doing gardening, either in the flat with your pot plants or in the garden itself, but short chunks of meaningful activities. And I'll tell you why I say that. If it was just for a day or so, then it'd be very different. But when this is going on for day after day after day, we need to have small chunks, and that each one is achievable. Yeah. And it's that sense of achievement that can keep the day passing. So what I want to say on that is, although we're in lockdown, if you think of many of these, the Navy chaps who are put into particularly nuclear submarines, and they may be in that confined space for months at a time. Now, if they were just told, guys, just occupy yourselves and we'll call you when we need you, there'd be mayhem. Yeah. But I guess because each person is following a set routine in each day with small goals that are achievable, it really helps to keep the mind active and alert. So for me, that would be the primary aim, to keep oneself active, short activities, each with an end goal.
Yeah. You see, because one of the people that approached me as an older gentleman, and they went into lockdown with his family spread apart, and so at the time, so they didn't have enough time to get back home. He unfortunately doesn't have a garden, and he never sees anybody, so he's extremely scared to go out because firstly he's a smoker and a drinker, so he's 10 times more vulnerable to the virus than a normal person. Yes. And so he chatted to me and he said he's desperate for just any contact and so on and so on. So it's difficult for him to do gardening or something, and especially like you said, it's been almost 4 months now. You can only do something to a point, I think, before you. I don't want to use the word go cuckoos, but lose your mental stability, if I can rather say it like that.
Yeah.
Whitey, look, that's absolutely correct. Let's just go back a few sentences. If someone doesn't have a garden, they might have in the house. I mean, for example, I mentioned pot plants, but it could be you have a small pet, even, a budgie or small toss. But failing that, now what are we doing? At the moment, there's the three of us. And although we're all in physically separate places, there's that social contact. Yes. So I guess the wonderful era in which we're living means that through social media, we have contact. It's very different, of course, from in-person contact. The other, although I would not recommend it unless it follows a set pattern, is, for example, we can use our imagination.
Yeah.
Hello, Chris. I see you've lit up a cigarette. That's interesting.
Yes,
this is in defiance.
In defiance, that is why I'm doing it. I'm a rebel, Doc.
Well, you know what? Okay, so that's good. That also keeps mental stimulation going. So, for example, imagination. It may be, if it is one's inclination, then reading textbooks. not textbooks, readable books of interest, which for some people may be scientific, for others it's fiction. So that's one way of having a kind of psychological social contact with others. And then, of course, there obviously is TV, whatever that is, SABC TV, DSTV, and so on.
Yeah.
But I would want to have a caution there. TV can be extremely addictive, and we can sit there and watch other people living their lives hour after hour while we're just sitting in the lounge or wherever watching. Now, I support that way of having social interaction, but again, it needs to be a limit. I mean, if it's like let's have a weekend fest of just being a potato on, couch potato and watching TV. That's okay, but not when it goes on week after week, because even that itself will begin to pale into uninterest. So we need to keep ourselves active in short stints.
Okay. All right, that's great. We've got our first question here from Susan Davis. She's saying, it's the same with my dad. He's overweight, stays inside, and plays computer games the whole time. He basically switched his day and night around. Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it's my daughter.
She did the same
Is that
thing.
a good thing?
I think most people could say that's probably not a good thing, but
yeah.
So look, it's not a good thing, but for me, the question would be, well, what are the alternatives for that person? I mean, clearly, there's issues there of overweight, and the more that gentleman sits there, the more difficult it is to actually begin to move around, because clearly there's muscle atrophy and so on. So it's also, what is the alternative? And so, particularly you said your dad, so I'm assuming that there must be some other family connections. So maybe up to a point, other family members could assist by, if they don't have internet and Wi-Fi, then phone calls. Again, you can't pop in now, but you could certainly make phone calls. But that is not healthy. So I would say to that gentleman, surely there's something you can do in the house that does not require too much exercise. So I come back to, are there small, for example, many of the children, I believe, during the lockdown were set experiments by the schools, such as you take a potato. We used to do that in our school days. Put it into the sun in a glass of water. What happens? So one can do things like that, anything to keep your mind active.
Yeah.
True.
So
Now,
I
I've
hope
got
we'll take construction from that.
Yeah. All right. The next question, Doc, I've got here. Michael asked me, he sent to me a WhatsApp. He said, I've been diagnosed with depression, and during this lockdown, I've felt my mental health consistently declining. I'm closing off more and talking openly about it far less. Do you have any ideas as how I can stop myself from shutting out my support system?
Whitey, it's an interesting question, and I think a very serious question. So, so this person has been formally diagnosed. So already they're somewhat, behind the starting block already before we hit lockdown. I have to assume that that person is perhaps on medication of some sort, or already is or was seeing a psychotherapist to help. But failing that, for whatever reason, that they really are now on their own, this person said he's now shutting down. It might be strange for me to say, well, then just do your best to try not to shut down. I mean, that's not possible. If the person could do that, they wouldn't be shutting down in the first place.
Absolutely.
But I would say to that person, it was Michael, I think you said, or Michael was referring maybe.
Michael McLeod,
Okay, so there we are. Okay, Michael. So, Michael, do your best to find in your day-to-day activities small items that you can engage with. It could be looking out of the window and seeing how many birds are in the tree, how many lizards are in the garden. And of course, Michael, you might say, but, when I was not depressed, I used to do that. And so, again, the fact you're not is an indication of shutting down. But I would say try your best in small ways to pull yourself into the world around you. Into the world around you is doing something active, not just sitting watching, for example, television. That's passive. It passes time, it's not passive. But looking out and actively counting and actually writing it down. Today I saw 6 yellow birds. Write that down. In the left side of the garden, there I saw lizards. Critically,
learn the new species of birds in the garden,
A new species of bird, you know.
Yeah.
But I would also want to ask Michael that if there was a previous diagnosis of depression and there's a lockdown, that whoever he was seeing, he should go back to. And if he's on medication, then speak to, that the GP or the psychiatrist. It might be that they need to fill the script again, or perhaps change the medication. I mean, I'm speaking generally because I don't know Michael's context. I don't know the age, the background, whatever.
Yeah. Now,
but I hope, Michael, that's helping you in some way.
Yeah, Michael, I hope you listen there. But I just want to add on a question too, because I think a lot of people, because I've got my next question lined up here. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people have lost businesses, income, and everything. Now, this is where it takes a lot of strain. I don't want to, your advice you just gave, that would be the common goal, to go see your psychiatrist or your GP again. But what do you do? Let's say, I'm not saying that he's in this situation, Michael. Let's just think maybe somebody else might ask this question.
Yeah.
What if somebody, due to this lockdown, has lost their income and everything, and they can't actually go and see somebody again? What do we just stick to just doing these small little tasks to try and keep the mind focused on something else, or is there maybe one step further we can go if they don't have the financial support to go through and see their doctor?
YT, it's interesting that in my practice over the past several months, actually starting last year, because over the months there's a changing profile, and that certainly there's been an increasing number of people I've seen who either are fearing retrenchment because of restructuring the company, or they have been retrenched, or, for example, their partners have been retrenched. And it's a pretty scary thing to suddenly, you come to a certain period and that bank account is not added to.
Exactly.
Right?
Or
sometimes the
pension went to zero.
Yeah.
It went to zero. And then there's the issue, well, if I do have pension, let me perhaps withdraw from that. But then there's anxiety about the future. So those are all realistic concerns. And it's important to try to keep one's mind off that, but in a considered way. You won't just go to denial. So I would say, Whitey, the points that you mentioned earlier on, definitely. But also, this is where language is very important. Now, I'm an English speaker, so I wish I could speak Zulu, Xhosa, Afrikaans fluently or whatever. I can't, but find your own equivalent in your language.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the word retrenchment, it's a fearful word. Oh, my word, I've been retrenched, that's it. And I've heard people saying it's like the end of my life. Right? Yeah. It's the end of certain aspirations. And I think that if we can find other words to describe that, such as, and for me, a key word and a beautiful word is in transition. You know what? Yeah. I found myself in transition. The person says, well, so what? So what is this? That if I'm in transition, I'm able then to think perhaps I can use this time to go through my CV, relook at possibilities in the future. And then one final thing I'd like to add here, when we go through our CV, it's pretty much the same. We go through, it's good to refresh our memories that look what we've achieved, look what we've done, wonderful. But those are formal, hard skills. I would want to say to someone, try to get behind that CV or above that CV. So, for example, maybe let's call them soft skills. Maybe your soft skills are, for example, maybe there's someone who's been a salesperson and they've got the list of all the companies they've worked for and they've met deliverables. That's great. But at the moment, that probably is a dead market.
Yeah.
No tourism, shops are closing. So I'd say to the person, okay, let's look and try and extract those soft skills. So, as, for example, a salesperson, well, that must entail interpersonal skills, right? you must have sufficient confidence, I suppose, to introduce yourself to other people, to be able to sell a product that you know enough about and believe in, right? And so one can then begin to break that CV down, let's call them hard technical skills, into soft skills. And then the next phase is to say, well, if I've got those soft skills, what can I do with those? Chris and Whitey, can I just tell you a brief story? Going back many years, I don't even recall the gentleman's name. You know, this is at least 20 years ago. I went into a board meeting at the university that I was at then, and the person who was the invited guest speaker was very much involved in the corporate sector and was involved in branding and had started his own very successful branding company. That's one of the reasons he'd been invited to the university.
Yeah.
So I had the fantastic opportunity to meet with him afterwards. And I thought, well, he'll have a string of degrees, a lot of experience. This is the man who can brand very successfully.
Yeah.
You know what his background was? And this amazed me. His background, actually, he'd been a school teacher.
Okay.
Now, how do you get from being a school teacher, a junior school teacher, into having his own company, which is a very large company at that stage, involved in branding, you know, and used by many big corporations? Well, he did what I've said. He said to himself, right, as a teacher, what are my soft skills? Well, I have the ability to convey knowledge and information. I have the ability to sell a certain a subject, history, geography, and so on. And so from that, he then decided, you know what, I have adequate skills to apply for a whole range of positions that are being advertised beyond just being a teacher.
Yeah.
So that's an example. I think we need to think as laterally and as broadly as we possibly can in this day and age.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that is
I hope
something
that's
that
answered your question sufficiently.
Absolutely,
That's really. Now, the next one here, sorry, Chris.
Okay.
Ilya.
All right.
And the next one here is from a good friend of ours. His name is Chris.
Yeah.
He said, so my father passed away. This was last year, and he tried to save him by CPR, and this failed. Now my business has failed due to the lockdown. My grandmother is in hospital with corona. Sorry for the swear word, but he's saying I'm losing my shit. So I think he's a very good friend of ours, and I know for a fact he's been hiding it with jokes and so on. But going through something like this is traumatic, because when his dad passed away, we raced there last year, September, tried to see whatever we could do to just help. But yeah, and now everything. So just everything is piling on top of each other.
Yes.
And they've got other serious problems there on the farms as well going on. I won't go too much detail, but
yeah. You know, that's a whole lot of events, very sad events that have occurred in a relatively short space of time. So let me say this, you know, look, as a clinical psychologist, my major, let's say, tool is conversational tool, exploring ideas, helping the person to use their own skills, their own creativity in order to find something that is suitable for them. You know, but that only works effectively if the person in the first instance already has not lost their sense of humor, is not too down and too depressed. So for me, in a case like this, for me, the very first port of call would be for me to send Chris, I think it was, to say, you need to see, I don't think for what I've read there is sufficiently serious to warrant seeing a psychiatrist. I'm not seeing any, what I'm going to call psychopathology, like severe personality, severe psychological difficulties. All of those, what I would call reactive events, death, corona, all of that. So that's a reaction to his environment. And in that case, for me, and I really believe in this sincerely, go to his GP and ask for an effective but mild or moderate antidepressant. And there are many of them around. Some of them can work within a matter of hours, but short term. Others are intended for, they take a week or two to kick in, but meant for longer use. Then I would say, all that does is to numb the pain, as if for example, analogy would be if a person has a severe headache and they go into a meeting, it's very difficult to concentrate on what one's line manager is saying with this throbbing headache. I would say, you know what, take Anadin, take Panado. Sorry, I'm not advertising there. Contain that headache, and then go back into the meeting and listen to what's happening. So I would say to Chris, first of all, get yourself rapidly, because that situation is not going to necessarily recover too easily, given the present lockdown situation. Go on to an antidepressant. And if you see a GP, even without medical aid, it's not exorbitantly expensive, right? And I don't think it warrants seeing a psychiatrist and I must emphasize, psychiatry is a very powerful and effective discipline, but from what I've read there, it's not necessary at that level.
Have some marijuana,
then after
Chris.
a week or two, maybe see someone. Well, you could, if you wanted to him, take marijuana, but I wouldn't actually recommend that for all the reasons we won't go into. But then, and I would say at the same time, ask the GP to refer him then to a psychologist, clinical or counseling.
Yeah.
All right, great stuff, Chris.
So, Chris, I do hope
well, you know what? I see there's a lot of guys, Doc, that are throwing questions. I really want to talk to you about some other stuff, but I'm going to ask you this question first. This is Andre Klute. He says, good evening, doctor. Do you think alcohol plays a big role in depression and anxiety in these hectic times, as people may have taken advantage of this during lockdown? So that is his question.
The first thought, it's a very important, serious question. The first thought that comes to my head are that next thing Max Hurrell will be taking clips of this and producing it into like some rap. So look, alcohol. And, there's no doubt. I mean, alcohol itself, although we'll say, it makes us feel relaxed and it's good for us, it is in itself, actually, it's a cortical depressant. It's not a stimulant. It depresses much of central nervous activity. But of course, that's why we begin to feel relaxed. And sometimes our inhibitions are released. And that's one of the reasons I guessed, although I don't agree with it, though, why the government has banned alcohol. The difficulty is, though, that if one is used to, and I'll come to tobacco in a moment, if one is used to socializing, a drink here and there, whatever there might be with food, it changes the entire one's ability to a large extent to enjoy one's home and environment. During lockdown, we need something more. It's like saying have your food, but if you love salt, you can't have salt with your food. It spoils the taste. Yeah. But I do want to say, look, there's two areas here. The one would be just a regular social drinker who, like me, it'll be sadly, I only had 2 bottles of wine, actually, when it was announced. 2 bottles last me a long time. But we can do without it. Yeah. Right? But then there's another whole spectrum of people who really struggle. I mean, and they may be alcoholic or not at that level, but still it's a very difficult matter to get themselves off alcohol. Now, many of those, they probably do, they go into rehab, they're under medical treatment to help them. And it's a slow withdrawal from alcohol and also with substitutes. Now what's happened is there's just been a sudden guillotine cutoff, and that can add to depression, not just because of the physiological responses, a sudden termination, but also it comes back to their enjoyment of whatever they've been enjoying also begins to change. So it has a definite effect. Look, I'm not going to, unless there are specific questions about tobacco, I'm not going to speak too much about that.
That's the one I want to really speak about.
Yes. Let me say.
Yeah.
Carry on, Chris. Carry on.
Doc, once this lockdown happened, and now they say, okay, now there's no cigarettes. Thank God I've got cigarettes. I'm one of those people. I went to rehab at 18 for heroin and crack, and cigarettes to me is kind of a thing that keeps me very, very calm. And the moment I realized what's the benefits for tobacco for me, is the moment I don't smoke, I become a complete asshole. I get crazy. I'm aggravated beyond. I'm a very strong person, but if I do not smoke, I'm a dangerous human being. Let me just say that. I will freaking stab people and shit. I will. And and that to me that to me is the biggest thing to get over. I would love to quit smoking, although now, in my head, I know I'm not saying, okay, I'm ready to quit. At the moment, I'm not, especially not now. And now they've taken away our ability to, well, let's say self-medicate. At least I can still get some Zol. I can smoke some marijuana, and that really relaxes me. You know what? At night, I feel sorry for guys that say they can't sleep and they're taking sleeping pills and stuff. To me, marijuana has been a life-changing drug for me. And now that it's legalized, it's really become part of my lifestyle. It's really something that I use for the benefits of it, and not for recreational use and stuff. I literally use it as a medicine. I'll have some before I go to sleep, or if, like you say, you're bored at home, you don't know what to do anymore, I'll smoke something, and trust me, in 5 minutes, I can think of 30 different things to do. Although I won't finish one thing, but I can think of 30 things to do in one go. But what can I do to help me with, let's say I can't get cigarettes anymore. I'm stone broke now. I can't get cigarettes. How do you overcome that addiction? Obviously, you've dealt with that with somebody that quit smoking. The anger and stuff they feel is something. It's insane. What would you say? What could help me?
Chris. Well, I'm pleased you raised this, and also the previous question. It lumped both, tobacco and alcohol into the same question, and I think they need to be treated very differently for obvious reasons. And I'll come to the addictive part now. I mean, it's obvious from everything we read that, not for everyone, but the one particular danger or risk of excessive alcohol consumption is danger to other people, car accidents, knifing, stabbings. I don't need to go into that, all right?
Yeah, we live in South Africa.
Unlike, I guess, the cigarettes. Yeah. Cigarettes is more like danger to oneself, although I know one could then refer to, quite correctly, the risk of passive smoking. But that's going way beyond this banning.
Yeah,
I think it might interest the listeners to know that alcoholism, let's say addiction to alcohol, okay, and smoking and tobacco addiction, they are classified by the World Health Organization as diseases. Not in a negative way, but that it's impossible. There are addictions. If you go to, for example, the ICD-10, that's the International Classification of Diseases. Yeah. And then that's the European version. The American is called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. You'll find that very clearly billable, treatable disorders under the section of addictions is tobacco and it's alcohol. So that says, before we even look at the local situation, that it's not just a matter of, well, we're going to ban Coca-Cola or whatever. There's a real medical difficulty in order to get off. Now, get oneself off that. I would say not so much for alcohol, because probably most people, 90% of people who are drinking alcohol, it's sociable drinking, right? Yeah. And there's not really an addiction there. It's a lifestyle addiction. Then there's a small percentage who are addicted. Yeah. Alcoholism.
Physically addicted,
Yes, right. But I think that's very different with smoking, because I really do believe, from what I've read and more from what I've lived, I'm not a smoker, but from what I observe, is that 99% of people who smoke cigarettes on a regular basis, not just the odd puff here and there, they become addicted. So they're different. I would say, on the whole, people who drink alcohol are not addicted. Generally, it's a trend.
No.
Individuals who smokers are. Right. Yeah. So that means it needs to be handled very differently. And if you were to approach any medical facility, with the request to help one to get to stop smoking, they would not simply say go cold turkey. They'd give one behavioral changes, which I'll come to in a moment, but also nicotine patches. That they'd use alternatives to help the person. You see, and the government hasn't provided that, right? The other real issue with both of those, but particularly smoking, and I'm pretty certain all the smokers will recognize I say this, is that smoking isn't a neutral activity.
No.
It's engaged or involved with a certain range of habits. So, for example, many people, before they can pick up a pen and write, or they say they don't want to have a beer without a cigarette, or sometimes they'll say, you know, I'm taking a smoke break. So the difficulty that individuals struggle with is not just simply, I'm going to stop smoking, but what about those associated activities, such as a smoke break, such as I no longer enjoy the beer I have, or now I'm not as creative, or I love to read the newspaper with a cigarette. And so it's twofold. And it's changing the behavior, and that's difficult enough. And on top of that, there's a real physiological addiction to nicotine.
Yes.
So I must say, for those people who are smokers, I'm not a smoker. I never have been. I think all of us, including smokers and including you, Chris, would say, you know, it's not really healthy for one's physiology. But having said that, I do believe it should be left to the choice of individuals if they want to give up or not. And if they do wish to, they should be given assistance, not just be guillotined off.
Exactly.
I guess that's all I can say on that topic.
If I can't get cigarettes anymore, I'm running out of cash. I'm already broke. If I can't get cigarettes from a shop, I'm gonna start stabbing MPDs and cops and stuff because I know they've got. And that's the extent that I would go to. I wish I could tell you the horror stories of the stuff I did when I was on crack cocaine and on heroin. So, you know,
Chris, I honestly, you look to be a really good chap. I do not think that you would go stabbing people, but I could see you actually engaging with people who previously would be considered to be, you know, the underworld, illegal tobacco sellers and stuff. I mean, clearly, you're smoking. I suppose that wasn't in storage from 4 months ago. So people
I totally commit to supporting the underground at the moment because they are supporting me. There's a comment here from Danny Lee. Maybe you can inform us a bit more on this. For those of us who have been forced to quit smoking, doctors can't even prescribe Champix and they can't purchase Nicorettes either.
Well, that's interesting. Now, I did not know that, and I don't understand the point of that, because you see that those are harmless nicotine substitutes, aren't they?
What I think the question is here, she elaborated. She says, I believe it's still labeled as a tobacco product. People use it to overcome the craving of smoking. I think they took it off the shelves as well during the lockdown when they banned cigarettes. So that's what she means. She can't even get Nicorettes or Champix because it's a tobacco product. Yeah. So I think that's what she means. So
well, you know what?
It's a nicotine substitute.
I never knew that.
Yeah,
you know. And it seems to me, if one was thinking through this logically, one would say, well, if we're going to ban a certain substance that we know, and it's not just peculiar to a certain group of people or to South Africans, it's the World Health Organization. We know it's classified as a treatable addiction. Then we need to provide some assistance to help those individuals, not simply say, cut them off at the head or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
So, but I would imagine even if those nicotine products, substitutes are not available over the counter, I would hope that they would be available on a prescription through a GP. But again, you know, in this day and age, if one hasn't got money for that because of retrenchment, which you spoke about, there's a problem there.
Yeah, because obviously there's a lot of nicotine addicted people in South Africa that have lost their jobs. The guys, he can't pay his medical aid anymore. And now, basically because of politics, the guy's thrown into a situation now where he needs the help, and he can't find it. He can't get it. So if there's anybody else out there that feels like me, they will revert to extreme situations to get what they need. I suppose it's the same when somebody's hungry. I understand addiction better than anybody that I know, because I've been faced and I lived through it.
Yes.
But with nicotine has taken the place of a lot of those drugs and stuff for me. And now to just be left in the dark, like you say, going cold turkey, it's the same as somebody going hungry and they still have the craving to feed. People will kill for food. And I think people out there don't understand the addiction to certain drugs, even nicotine. If you can't find that, and if you don't have the right environment in your home, then your support system,
Yes.
you will definitely go into a different mindset, and it's a physical thing that you experience. Like if I can't
Chris,
smoke at night, I
absolutely.
will clean the whole house. I will clean everything.
Well, you see, that's in an activity with a desired outcome, isn't it? Cleaning.
Yeah,
Look, I just want to just if I can be as bold as to say, just correct one thing you said there.
Yeah.
You drew the analogy of someone who's hungry. That's a very different situation, because that is I'm not saying that an addictive craving is not physiological, but hunger, we need food no matter what it is, or we're going to die, right? We don't necessarily need nicotine or we'll die. Although clearly, I think that I could well imagine if someone has one of these comorbidities, right? And they are used to smoking for 30, 35 years, 40 years, it could well be that rapid withdrawal of nicotine from the system would certainly put it under stress. And I would not be surprised if they go into a medical crisis of some sort with high blood pressure or dropping blood pressure. So it is a medical situation, not just I'm making this up. Anyone can just Google World Health Organization and look at it as what they say about it as being an addictive disease.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And that's what it feels like. It's honestly, it's a very addictive disease. I think to millions out there, millions of guys watching this are in the same boat. They'll go through everything to try and get cigarettes out there. And as long as there's a black market for it, we're going to support that. Even if it's Mrs. Zuma supplying the cigarettes, or if it's your neighbor that you absolutely hate, but he's selling cigarettes, you will go to him for that pure reason that it's such an addiction.
Yeah.
So, look, we'll move on, but I'll tell you one thing, Chris. If you turn around, there's blue lights flashing behind that screen. I think someone's come to arrest you for admitting to engaging with illegal trade.
That's all right. I've got a blade here, and I've just killed the last smoke. So bring it on. Yeah.
Destroy the evidence.
Doc, moving on. I've got my next anonymous question here. I was retrenched 2 months ago, and my husband is working crazy hours to ensure he keeps his job and can provide for us. This has resulted in high stress levels for him. I do all the housewife things, cook, dinner, etc., and I show my appreciation, support, and encouragement. But I feel that this is not good enough to relieve his stress and put his mind at ease. Have you got any suggestions on how better I can help?
My silence is, that's a mouthful, and it's a very, and I'm sorry to hear, it's a very sad and difficult situation. You know what I would say is that's all that you can do. You carry on doing that. I would say emotional support is the big issue. So if I were to say to this anonymous, well, just show love to your partner. I mean, that's rather trite, show love. But I guess it's one thing to be doing things, and that's really great, and helping to ease the stress, working as much as you can to keep the home front going. But sometimes that can result in understandable frustration, exhaustion. Then one's partner gets home, and although the house is in great order, and which was necessary, I'm not in any way underestimating the difficulty in that, then Anonymous's emotional state, mind may be physically exhausted and tired, and that's not a good companion to help her partner to have at least a few relaxing hours.
Yeah.
But can I say this also to Anonymous? I'm saying this now, not knowing anything about the background, whether there are adequate financial reserves, or whether they're absolutely, despite the husband working long extra hours, they're still flying by the seat of the pants. And all of those add to issues around stress and the necessity. But it's a difficult situation. It really is.
Yeah.
So I would say just try to, for both of you, also to the communication between both of you, to keep that positive. If one is going to have discussions around one's exhaustion, then set a time by saying, you know what, I'm really frustrated with what's happened today. Can we talk about this after supper? So set aside a time, because this isn't just for the one night. I'm hearing that this could go on for weeks or months.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually, my personal situation is, I was completely cut off when the lockdown happened financially, because I owned the pub. I'm in the entertainment industry, same as Chris, and so on. We were immediately gone, all income lost. So that's why we started this project, and I know the stress levels. Chris and I work ourselves to the bone to get this program up and running and make it a new successful business. But from personal experience, the stress levels at home it's enormous, and I can explode and so on. I'm a very big man. I'm a 6'8" man. So, and my wife is this short, 4 foot nothing. So I am talking under real things. It is the stress levels is just, it's just so scary. And like Chris said, it is a scary situation we are in, and people are breaking up now. So that wasn't the question. I wanted to ask you before, because our time is almost up. Have you've obviously seen an increase in depression, anxiety, and so on? Because when you and I chatted on WhatsApp, I saw a couple of times you were up until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you back up at 7. Are you that busy with patients, or have you seen an increase, or just?
No. Look, I'm a night owl, and I just find I have a lot of energy. So you're right. I don't require much sleep, but that's just, I guess, my genetic makeup. So, but to answer your question, look, what I have noticed is before lockdown, I've always been busy, and when lockdown arrived, I was fearful that I should keep going through to the NHC. My room's at the NHC in Honeydew, and I would not be seeing very many patients or clients at all. But really, I think there's been a whole mindset change in terms of how, for the time being, how we engage socially. So it's been picking up, and quite frankly, as the weeks have gone on, I've become busier and busier. And I'm just to share that point. Last week, so before our president made the announcement of not shifting levels, but we're tightening down, it was becoming slightly quieter, but I'm still busy every day. Since that announcement, I've had a flood of phone calls or messages to me, because I think for all of us, and I include myself in that, we're hoping that we're going to get to the end, we'll go to a lower level. Now, suddenly we're told, no, we're not changing the level, but we are bringing back restrictions. And I think it's like anything. At some point, we become fatigued, become exhausted. And that's what's beginning to happen now. So you asked about anxiety and depression. Look, that's always been there, but it's become exacerbated over the past many, many weeks. For me, the question is how to manage that, and what are the consequences? So, in relationships, the consequences, particularly of depression, can be enormous, because that can result in relationships becoming fragmented and fractured. parents become agitated, angry, annoyed. Children are at home, maybe doing online schooling, but they're at home 24/7. So the manifestations of those two, anxiety and depression, are enormous in this lockdown period. But yes, I have become increasingly busy, much to my, well, I guess my surprise. I was hoping that, like all of us, the lockdown would be over within 5 weeks, and then we just take personal responsibility for our safety.
Doc, I've got...
sorry, Whitey.
Sorry, I just need to get this question in because it was asked 40 minutes ago to me and I forgot to ask it. Doc, I've got another anonymous here who's saying, ask the doctor about lockdown stupidity. Now, I think he means it in the best possible sense because I started calling it lockdown syndrome. I've seen it where people are so focused or their mind is so somewhere else because of this lockdown that they make the silliest of mistakes. And will this lockdown have that massive type of effect on people's daily routine that they would make so many silly mistakes? I promise you, like I've done it, seen it where I would do something. I'm like, why did I just do that? I've never in my life done it because your attention is there. So I'm proof that yes, lockdown I call it the lockdown syndrome is there.
Well, that's an interesting term, lockdown syndrome. Maybe I should use that in the future, and I'll just say copyright. Copyright YT.
There you go.
2020.
Yes,
there we are. Copyright term. So look, I'd like to comment this way. It's beyond my brief to speak about lockdown stupidity. I mean, that's a whole debate in itself to do with politics and what we know, what we don't know, and what's being misused and so forth. So I don't even go down that road because that would be just my personal opinion.
Correct.
But I am interested in what I understand that viewer to have implied, this lockdown stupidity. And I think you've clarified that, Whitey. See, let me say this, and I hope it makes sense. I would go as far as saying, I don't think that lack of attention to detail or that missing an important point or driving one's car carelessly, and includes myself in a moment, because we forget how to drive the car. I wouldn't say that's due down to lockdown. I think it's that the lockdown has brought about significant emotional deficits, resulting in anxiety and depression. So what you're describing, Whitey, that's more the consequence of being distracted, of anxiety, worrying, where will I get my next cigarette from? Or I feel this addiction. So I don't want to say that's a lockdown. It's because of psychological changes, but behind that has been the lockdown. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, because you know what, Doc? The one thing that I've noticed is the rate of suicide that's gone up. And with that, I think if anybody out there was a lawyer now, if you're a divorce lawyer, this is the golden age for anybody. But obviously, this is getting to people in such a manner that, you know what, that they are prepared to go through such extremes. I've seen happily married people fight. I'm very fortunate. I'm in a totally loving commitment and a committed relationship, and my woman actually keeps me sane.
My woman.
She never throws. She knows what I mean. And she never throws anything in my face. Like, I know there's guys out there. The guy has been retrenched and stuff. And now his wife has got to look after him. That eats on any man's pride. If you're half a man, that should be eating on your pride. And it absolutely does. But, not everybody's in that same kind of relationship where it's okay. She makes you feel that it's okay. And I know there's so many guys out there that are feeling the same. And they're in this relationship with the woman, and now they've totally reliant on her salary or whatever. The stresses that's involved in those families now. I think I just changed it from a question to just a statement. How do you keep sane? For both partners, what can you tell ladies out there, how to treat each other to make things better. And for the guys whose wife has now been retrenched and has to live with him the whole time, and there's one salary. What do you say to each other to make it feel okay, to make it right?
So, Chris, thanks for asking that question. I think let me just take it the more serious end result, which is said that there's been an observation of an increased suicide rate or attempted suicide rate.
Yeah.
So I would say to anyone who is in that situation or their partner is, you need first and foremost and rapidly, because these emotional matters don't just heal spontaneously and of their own accord in this kind of situation, to phone. So there's helplines to phone. There's this South African anxiety and depression group. There are lots of helplines out there to phone. And often just that single call can be extremely helpful, you see. And also, just so that I'm not accused of maybe being sexist. I'm not saying you in any way, Chris, but you mentioned, well, like the husband's retrenched. But in the modern economy, very often it's the reverse. It's that the wife, the female partner, might be the higher earner, and things happen there. Or we'll have gay or lesbian couples. So really, it's when two or more are living together and they rely upon that mutual support, and one of them is knocked out of the running. That's enormous stress financially, and then for the one out of the running, they feel inadequate. So at that point, you say, what can they say to one another? Well, obviously, I mean, I think that really is implied in everything we've spoken about earlier this evening. But I would say that if there's any sense of that my partner or myself, I might do something foolish and attempt to take my life, do not hesitate. Phone a helpline or your GP or friend or family member as soon as you can without any delay. That really is important.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Doctor, we just want to say a big thank you. Now, before we go, Andre said here, well said, Doctor, you have covered all that you could in the time you had. Could the people contact you for consultation if needed? Now, I think that is a yes. Am I right?
That's correct. Yes.
Is the details I've got correct?
Yes, that's right. Okay, the NHC. So they phone the NHC, and then the NHC will then pass the number on to me. Sometimes it really is just a matter of some conversations. It doesn't necessarily have to go into engaging in long-term therapy. But certainly, I'm very happy with that. And I know there is the fellow psychologists at the NHC. They'd also be very happy to become involved as well.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Well, Doctor, we just want to say an absolute big thank you. Thank you for taking your time and chatting to our people. And there's a lot of people who said a big thanks, and they really enjoyed this chat, and it was very informative. So really, thank you for taking your time.
Thank you for giving us your time. And you know what? We hope we hope you change a lot of people's minds and keep them positive out there. And hopefully we find a cure for all these problems that South Africa's facing together.
One day at a time.
One day at a time, man. Absolutely. I think that's the wisest words every man has ever said, Whitey. It's one day at a time, man.
Yeah.
Nothing gets done in a rush. You got to take your time to sort yourself. In one day. Exactly, man. You got to sort everything out bit by bit.
Awesome. Have a wonderful evening further, Doc.
I'm sure, gentlemen and viewers, keep well. Take care. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Doc.
Bye.
Cheers, man. Bye.
Bye.
Wow. That was buying.
Well, there you go, guys. What a show. So the doctors, there you go. NHC, Honeydew, I know they're opposite Eagle Canyon. It's Christian de Wet and Blueberry. If you're not in the East Rand, West Rand, in the Wolle West Rand, and you work, gisterand, work.
And you work
on
the other side. Other things. then you must go to another doctor because it's very far if you want to come to this doctor.
That are
And then-
correct.
That okay, and that will place more stress upon your mental health. And so get a doctor that are closer to you, and then you
Exactly.
can go speak to that doctor, and he will help you with things
Yeah.
that are really bothering you, and then you can sort yourself out, with help.
Yeah.
And maybe
That-
they give you lekker drugs that help you feel better, and it costs a lot of money, and everybody's happy.
Yeah. Now, guys,
Yeah.
just back on a serious note, the whole suicidal thing, guys, be vigilant.
Yeah,
The
man.
people who commit suicide, they don't say anything. They don't walk around saying, "I'm going to commit suicide."
That's a guy that's happy now. And tomorrow you wake up and you hear, oh, shit,
I've
he's gone.
unfortunately experienced in my life. I lost a couple of friends who committed
lot.
suicide, and nothing, no indication, nothing. So, guys, just please watch out for your friends, your family. If you see just a change, just chat to them. That little ray of sunshine that you can project onto a person could really change thing around. We take each other for granted, and trust me, you don't want to wake up the next day going, you regret that the last thing you did was have a big fight with that person over something mundane. You might not know what is going on in that person's
It's not even
life.
your fault, dude. And then that shit happens and you blame yourself for that.
Remember, it's material stuff we're fighting over. It's
Dude,
silly things.
It
Look
comes
after each
down
other.
to this, Whitey. If you love each other, if you listen to each other, listening to each other, you know what? Everybody's always trying to get their own point across.
Yeah.
When you'll be surprised how much just listening to somebody can take so much stress and shit off their chest. And you know what, guys? We are very fortunate. We've got all you guys. Lekker man. We've got all you guys in our lives. Everything we're doing now is pretty much for the SA Bros family and our
To stay
broettes.
sane and happy and everything.
Yeah.
Well,
Even if this is your hour session, your hour therapy every night, and we try and make it fun. Now and then we gotta do the serious shit like tonight. But you know what?
yeah. It's just all to entertain you, be informative, and just we need to stick together. We're making jokes and so on the whole time, but we also need to look at the serious side.
And here's the serious thing, dude. It's like Mike. Now we know, okay, Mike's going through depression. I never believed in depression. I was raised old school Afrikaans. Depressie, dit het nie fucking bestaan nie, my kind. Jy's net jy's vol kak, is wat dit was.
Ja,
En so 'n paar jaar terug het ek self al deurgegaan. Ek het nie geweet dis fucking depression nie. Ek het net gevoel, jy weet, jy's lus vir niks nie. You don't feel like doing anything. You don't want really, even the person you love is
And
not
that's a
enough.
form
It's
of
just
depression.
like, yeah.
Is a
And you know what? I never understood depression until after I went through it, and somebody told me, "Hey, dude, that was fucking depression. What you were experiencing there was depression." And then all of a sudden, it made sense. Like, you know what? The only way you get out of depression, and this sucks to most people, is you have to get yourself out of it.
yeah.
And you will be
Exactly.
surprised how many people are out there that you love or that love you, that will give you just a couple of minutes to listen to you, just get you to talk your heart out and make
Just
you feel
talk,
better,
just
man.
praat. WhatsApp is so te sê gratis 'n WhatsApp oproep. But anyways, guys, dit is nou genoeg oor dit gepraat. Môre aand nog nie 100% bevestiging op ons gas nie. Donderdag.
Ja,
Wie nou
ek sien. Ek het
Wie
nie
is
'n klou
dit?
nie.
Wat gaan nie aan?
Weet jy?
Dit moet ons op gou opbring.
Hello, Timmy. Hi, Tim. Tim,
Hello,
can you hear us? Hi, Tim. Where are you from? This is
How did
how's
you
it?
get on
Yeah.
the channel?
This is interesting. I'm from East London.
All right, Tim from East London. Welcome to SA Bros. You're on our you're on our podcast. For some reason, I don't know how you got onto this. Hello, Lighty.
Hi, no, this is my son. You were interviewing my dad earlier.
Oh
Is that
shit.
your dad?
Okay.
Yes, yeah. And I wasn't sure if it was still on now or not, but yeah.
Okay.
We just say goodbye to our guys, because the interview is now done. But it will still be on Facebook and YouTube.
Well, you know what?
If you want to watch it,
give a love to your dad and give your dad a call. I'm sure he misses you, man.
I'll do that. Thanks, guys.
Cool, man. Just bye.
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 Dit was nou so weird. Ek sê ek kom hier nou op, ek dog wat gaan hier aan?
Want ek sien dit so in jou oë waar jy what the fuck
gaan hier aan?
Dude.
Anyways, guys, so let's just back to it. So tomorrow night 100%. Thursday night as die ou tog net sy foon wil antwoord, dan net ek 'n awesome ou en dan watch nou vir Cindy. Vrydag aand, Bro Friday.
Bro Friday, baby.
Bro Friday, we are not going away this weekend due to the very bad winds
weather
and gusts
and everything. But we are very fortunate. We are speaking to different guys. We've got a couple of really cool interviews and big things happening with the bros. So guys, look after each other, love each other. Fucking luister vir mekaar en just be there for each other, man. If you're feeling alone, know that there's somebody out there feeling alone too. You're not alone.
Nee, Cindy, it's not Dale nie. Verslag it's not Dale. It's not Dale this time.
Dale. But I love Dale.
Kyk. Bro Friday, Cindy. Bro Friday. Ja, sy spring seker op en af. Die kinders dink ons ma's mal.
I'm working Friday. Sorry, Whitey. No, I'm sure you are, Clutter.
Guys, I like it. I like this bro jy. Bro Friday.
Bro jy.
Bro Friday is nou bro jy.
Every day is a bro jy, man. If you're part of the bros, every day is a bro jy. But Fridays are super bro yys. Yeah.
There we go. Let me just put it on the screen.
Yeah,
bro jy.
Dude. Well, Guy, what a lucky interview. Thanks, Tim, for joining us and then leaving so soon.
Confusing the living crap out of me.
We've met the whole family now. All we need is the ladies. And then we've had everybody on. But, dude, thank you, Dr. Stones, for actually joining us, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, like I said, love each other, be there for each other, and just be happy.
Listen to each other.
Happy. Yeah.
Fucking hoop om net jou punt oor te kry. Praat 'n bietjie met
ons het so goed gedoen met die gevloekery en daar op terug toe die dokter af is, toe trek Chris los. Is jou sigaret addiction. Toe maar wanneer ons nou goodbye sê en ek my oorfoon afhaal, dan gaan ek weer rympies vloek. So ja.
Ek is seker jy gaan. Nee, ons moet net 'n bietjie van ons daarin kry. I think we're doing really great at the non-swearing policy and
it's working well and we're getting more viewers and so on. So we're going to stick to it a bit. On Twitch gaan ons simpel.
Ja. Okay.
Daar's ons laf. Dis die SA bros, dis net malletjies. Julle die malletjies. Guys, anyways, have a wonderful night. Love you guys. Be safe. Goodbye.
Peace.
Goodbye, everybody, from SA Bros.